What's up, RC drifters? The Rmx feels great out of the box on the stock settings, but now it's time for the first mod, which is changing the FDR and fitting a ball diff. In stock form, the Rmx 2.0 Classic comes with a 4211 gear set in the gearbox and an 80-tooth spur gear. Now it's up to you to choose your pinion size, and the largest pinion I had was a 23 tooth, resulting in a final drive ratio of 13.28. What that means is for every 13.28 turns of the motor, the wheels turn once. Now it's really important that you choose the right final drive ratio for the driving surface that you're going to be mostly driving on. Generally speaking, when using a 10.5 turn motor, you want to be in the range of 10 to 13 for concrete or plastic tile, in the range of 8 to 10 for tarmac or asphalt, and somewhere in the range of 7 to 9 is perfect for carpet. Now carpet is my chosen surface, so I'm going to be targeting an FDR of 9 to 1. So to achieve that, I'm going to fit MST's Bevel style ball diff with a 3617 gear set. Alongside the ball diff, I'm also going to be fitting a 19 tooth pinion, which is going to give me an FDR of 8.92 to 1. But first of all, let's open up this diff set, lay it all out and see what we've got. So we've got the whole assembly all spread out here. As you can see, we've got your instructions of how you put everything together in what order. We've got everything laid out in the same orientation so we can see what's going on. Cheat code: these bearings, particularly the thrust bearings, are very, very small. I emptied them into the lid of one of the grease pots. And as a side note, the black grease is for the thrust bearings and the clear grease or the white grease is for the bevel gear bearings. The assembly is very, very similar to installing your locked diff that comes in the 2.0 Classic or the Rmx 2.0 ready to run. So if you built all that up yourself in the kit, it's very, very similar to that. And if you're upgrading to the ball diff from the ready to run, then go back and watch my video where I assemble the diff in the classic video. So I'm going to get this all assembled, and if there's anything I feel like needs highlighting, I'll let you know along the way. So what I actually did when building up the thrust bearing is I daubed a load of the black grease, put it around the head of the bolt, placed the first washer down onto the excuse my hands, onto the base of the head of the bolt, and then I used the pick to pick the bearings up. With the grease already on the pick, I could pick the bearings up and then just lay them onto the shaft and then place the other the washer over the top. Now you literally just push that down into the smaller side of the drive cups, and that's that side of it done. With that screw and the thrust bearing installed, you then put the diff plate into place, making sure it is seated on the hex on the inside, and then you place the bearings on top there. That's the bearings on top there. Make sure this bolt stays snug up the top. There is a slit on the side there, and you don't want to lose any of those thrust bearings. Okay, now we're going to start putting the 36 tooth bevel and then installing the bearings into the appropriate holes and make sure it's all nicely covered with the white grease. So there we have the 36 tooth bevel gear all installed, with the bearings all seated in their holes and on top covered in grease. And then we can put the diff plates on top of that, and then fit the other longer shaft on the other side. And there we have the diff complete. The trickiest part was getting the spring down here and then the washer on top. And I actually used the chopstick to guide it all down there in place, and then let it slid down the shaft. And then you've got that securing nut, which you just wind down until the side of it there is flush with that level there. The bearing sits onto that, which you'll use the one from your old casing. Alright, so next let's get the gearbox out of the car and set about installing this. Okay, with the chassis up on the table, we're going to take our 2mm hex and we're going to undo the bottom of the shock here, the bottom of the shock here, and then these two bolts up here as well. And that will take off the shocks, the rear damper stay, and whatever it is that you're using to hold on your shell. For me, I've got some posts with some Velcro holding the back of the shell on. So let's start off with, let's 1, 2, 3, 4, and get those off. With those loose, we now want to take off the 2 screws either side here and here, holding the top of the hubs in, and that whole assembly will come off. As you can see, that's now all off in one lot. We can just put that to one side. Just worth noting, you might be tempted to pop these ball ends off instead, but that will prematurely wear the cup out, and then you'll get a lot of play in those areas. So where you can, and you can just unscrew the nut instead, I'd always recommend doing that. So the only times that will come loose, the only 2 bolts that will come loose are these ones. They'll come right out, so make sure you lay them face down not to lose those. And also, when you're taking these off, you want to pay attention to what hole these came out of on the tops of your hubs and what hole these came out of on your bottom arms. Next, we want to take the motor pinion, spur gear and the motor off. So for me, I've got 2 2.5 hexes, a 2mm hex there, and then a 1.5 mil hex holding this spur pinion on. Once that is all removed, it's very important that you knock out the spur drive holder pin that goes through that shaft, and make sure that you knock it out and you don't lose it. I just pushed it out, and that's there. We want to make sure that we put that to one side nice and safe. Now, with all that removed from the other side, you want to go round, remove these 2 screws here that hold on the top of the gearbox, and then we'll flip the motor upside down and we'll undo the 4 remaining screws that hold the bottom of the casing on. Now they are removed, just take note that there is a longer screw, and that's the one that goes in the furthest to the rear of the motor, and that goes through to the motor plate. Now that all that's removed and we're ready to flip the chassis over, you can simply just pull the wheels down so the shafts come out either side and then flip the motor over. With the chassis now flipped upside down, you can see here where I've cut out the back where it recommends in the manual to allow for more droop, that's more travel for the lower arms. But when removing the gearbox, we're looking at these 4 inner screws. Now that we've successfully removed the gearbox from the chassis, we've just got 4 more bolts left. So we've got the 2mm Allen keys at the back there, and then on the opposite side we've got the 2.5mm remaining screws that hold the motor plate on. So we can take those out, take off these cups, and then pop the gearbox casing open. Okay, with the gearbox all split in half, and we can see we've got the bevel gears on one side and the open casing on the opposite side. Now you can see there is a dot on this casing here, and this bit here we're going to take out. We need to make sure when we reinstall this piece that that dot is facing upwards. Now, there's a closer look at that dot. You can see there, it's only on one side. That's got to be facing upwards and towards the back of the gearbox. Now, we should be able to just pop this off and replace it with the new one, and then take the diff out and just swap it, as simple as that. Okay, so with that removed, and that literally just pushes off. It was stiff, so what I did is I got a an Allen driver and just pushed on that rod and popped that gear out, then replaced the bearings. And now you just take your new 17 tooth pinion and that will just slide on under. So with that pressed on, we can put that to one side. With the locking diff removed, we can take our new ball diff. Now you can adjust the tightness of the diff by using that Allen key, that 2.5mm Allen key. But to start off with, you want to have the minimum adjustment, so that's the loosest it will be, with that lock nut in line with this end of the shaft. Then you want to put the shorter side of the cup down in through the gearbox, like so. Make sure that's nice and seated. And then we're going to replace this section, meaning the dot is facing upwards and outwards. Down like so. Make sure that the teeth are all in line. And everything is moving. And then we will replace the cover over the top of that. With that all clicked in, make sure everything feels nice. We can just reinstall everything, the reverse of how we took it apart. So with everything all put back together, let's head down the track and see what difference it makes.